What's up, Lightning fans? Rachel West here, and I'm joined by Ed Encina, who's back in America, rejoining us from Toronto. Welcome back.
It's quite an intro.
Only the best for the best.
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, Toronto was great. Had some ketchup chips for the first time.
Yikes.
Heard a lot of Drake, and watched some hockey.
More of a country music fan myself, but the hockey, that was good. Well, half of it was good. The series is now tied 1-1 between the Bolts and the Maple Leafs. But the Lightning, something that they just don't do, Ed, is lose back-to-back games in the playoffs, 16-0 the past couple of years, coming off of a loss.
Yeah, and that's what they did in Game 2, obviously, coming off a really rough 5-0 loss in Game 1. This team is just so good at really finding their mistakes and correcting them quickly, and that's really one of their main reasons why they won back-to-back Stanley Cup championships. And I think, during that off day, I talked to Derek Lalonde, assistant coach of Lightning, and he had said that, that's really the key is, you spend a lot of time going over video, acknowledging the mistakes you made, and then knowing how to correct them. And the big thing, the belief in that room is that they know that when they play at the top of their game, there's very few people that can beat them. And I think that's the way, the attitude that they had. And they were a little angry, too. I mean, going into Game 2, we were talking to players, and we could tell they were a little perturbed about how that game went. So I think a couple of those combinations go into the success that this team has had coming off a loss.
Yep, and something else that all the guys that are going to be on the ice tonight know is that the Maple Leafs came back late in that game, scored a couple late goals, picked up a little bit of momentum. Do you think that's going to carry over into tonight's game?
Yeah, I think, possibly. I mean, obviously that's what Toronto is going to look for to kind of carry momentum. I think this series has been unique in the sense that there's been so much special teams play, and there really hasn't been too much of this opportunity to have a 5-on-5 tempo for either team. You really haven't seen any real player kind of stand out in a lot of ways, and a big part of it is because, there's been so much special teams play. And I think we saw both in Game 1s and Game 2s how much early on that really played a role in momentum. So I think that's really the big thing. Look, what team takes penalties early on, what team's going to have to kill penalties, and what team's going to. Sometimes it puts pressure on the power play unit, which is what we saw in both games early on in Games 1 and 2.
Yeah, a little more 5-on-5 action wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, maybe. But as we touched on, the Bolts are back home in Tampa. They're going to be playing in front of the home crowd. How much of a home advantage is that going to be for them?
I mean, it'll be big. I mean, I think that the big narrative in Toronto in the first couple games was about how loud the crowd was at Scotiabank Arena. Obviously, fans in the stands for the first time in the postseason since a few years ago. So, but the Lightning have played in much louder venues. I think Carolina comes to mind last year, even Florida last year. Nassau Coliseum was louder.
You're coming for the Toronto fans.
Right. Come at me. But anyway, I think that, obviously playing in front of this crowd, they've always got a lot of energy from them, and I expected no different tonight. But, we have seen, how sometimes this team has kind of had some duds in front of their home crowd. Even that first game of the year comes to mind, and, a 6-2 loss here to the Maple Leafs on April 4th comes to mind, as sometimes when maybe they just didn't have that kind of, juice that they should have at home. So it'll be interesting to see how much, they can feed off the crowd and use the crowd as momentum.
Hopefully they come out with a lot of juice tonight. Puck drop is at 7:30. And if you guys aren't going to be at the arena, make sure you're keeping up with all of our coverage that we've got for you over on social media at Sports by Tampa Bay Times, as well as tampabay.com.